a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torture and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit as a queen, I am not a widow, and I will never mourn. 8. Therefore in one day, there's going to be a lot of that, 1 day and 1 hour, her plague will overtake her. Death, mourning, and famine, she will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her. So verse 6, God saw, what she's been doing, and talking about Babylon, and what she did to the saints, because they said anybody repentant is gonna be martyred, and he's going to give her a double dose, okay, of what she deserves. So if you go to chapter 14 right here in Revelation, verse 8, kind of talks about that. Chapter 14, verse 8 says, a second angel followed and said, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, which made all the nations drink the maddening wine of her adulteries. Okay? Leading people astray. So that, 14:8, will call for the cup of wrath in 14:10. It says, he too will drink of the wine of God's fury, which has been poured out full strength into the cup of his wrath. So because of 14:8, going to get a double dose of 14:10. Does that kind of make sense? And then actually there was other parts that talk about the double dose that Babylon's going to get. If you want to write it down, Jeremiah 16:18 and Jeremiah 50:29. And then verse 7, so in Isaiah 42, verses 8, God says basically that he will not share his glory with no one, no thing, nothing. Okay? And in verse 7 there, it said, give her as much torture and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. And God's like, no. I share my glory with nobody. And then the second part of 7 there is she's very arrogant. I said as a queen, I am not a widow, and I will never mourn. Basically there she's saying she's self-reliant. She doesn't need anything from anybody. And she's never going to mourn. But 1 Timothy 5:6. 1 Timothy 5:6 says, but the widow who lives for pleasure is dead, even while she lives. It goes hand in hand for that. So this city of Babylon was living for herself, and that's all she was worried about. You got to think these people that are in Babylon, they're thinking nothing's going to happen to them. They're building this whole great city. They got probably aircraft carriers sitting over there on the side. They feel protected. They got the military, they got the army, they got merchants coming in, trading left and right, trades going out. I mean, they're just getting richer and richer, and they feel like nothing is going to happen to them. But just like there in Timothy, they're only worried about their own pleasure. They don't even know what's probably yet to come for them until their destruction happens. All right, so verse 8 there, and then again it said 1 day, and like I said, don't take that literally, but just mean swiftly. It's going to take a short amount of time, and she will be destroyed. Her judgments, and that when you get into the bowl judgments, and if you remember last week, I said they're just dumped on. They're not dribbling out. All right, so the rest of this chapter, we're going to learn. I alluded to it. We're going to learn about two different reactions to this judgment, the destruction of Babylon, by two different groups. Okay, there's going to be a grieving group, and then there's going to be a celebrating group. And the first one we're going to read about it is the grieving people. There's going to be the kings, the merchants, and then the seamen. that are all grieving over the destruction. So verse 9 says, when the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry, woe, woe, O great city, O Babylon, city of power. In 1 hour your doom has come. These guys cannot believe this just happened. Like I said, they're thinking this place is indestructible, ain't nothing going to happen. They're living their best life. But like we read earlier, it's only for a little while, a few short years. But notice there in 10, when it says they stand far off, nothing was ever wrote that, hey, they rushed in and tried to help. You know, they love this city, but it goes along to the point of you better pick the friends you have right. You know, somebody that has your back, and these guys obviously did not. They seen her burning and just kind of stood off. And this group, they are legit lamenting when it says there in verse 9, they will weep and mourn over her. I mean, they're lamenting, and it's not, they're not lamenting over their sin because they're sorry for what they have done, but they're crying about, like, basically, how could God just destroy this? Like, we love this place. Like, how could God get rid of this? They're not sorry at all for what they've done. They're just sorry that it's destroyed, and then now they're even more mad at God because it's gone. And then here it says again, 1 hour. Like I said, God destroys all this easily. The people thought this city was indestructible, but it definitely is not. So 11 to 13 now is going to talk about the merchants of the city. And they're still part of the grieving. Verse 11, it says, the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, and then here we got a list. Gold, silver, precious stones, and pearls, fine linen, purple silk, and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble. Cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine, olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and bodies and souls of men. And that last part there is kind of awful. Bodies and souls of men, so basically slavery, and the souls that they know that they've taken away. But this list of commodities, if I counted them right earlier, it's 28 items. And it's basically like, I pictured it as like the old Sears catalog. You know, you open it up, it had everything you needed right there in it. Or I guess if you put it in modern day terms, it's, you know, like an online ad that's got, you know, future Amazon. Oh, there you go. Dang, I didn't pop up till just now. But I mean, that's about like Amazon right there. Got everything you needed. But this list of commodities, it's all worthless. Because guess what? These merchants are all here. They're wanting to trade and sell their stuff. There ain't nobody there to do it anymore. And there's actually a similar list to this. If you want to go to Ezekiel 27, verses 12 through 22, it's got about like half this list. I don't really know if it's related all that much, but it's still kind of interesting. And that's in the old, if you know much about the Old Testament, all but Tyre, which if you read Old Testament stuff about Tyre, which is Tyre, and Babylon, there's always correlations between the two, and actually a lot. That's how we actually get the description of Satan's first fall, is in the whole Tyre thing. That's something enough for another day. But here's a running thought. All right, so we read the catalog. It's all worthless. Babylon's sitting there burning. These guys are just as sad as the kings are. So if all your hope is in money, riches, possessions, the economy, you are in a rude awakening and for a major disappointment. Those things should come second, third, fourth, fifth to God. But it's easily nowadays, I mean, me and Val talk about stuff all the time. Like, we know so many people that are more worried about their career and stuff than they are their standing with God, so it happens now, and it's going to happen then. All right, so the last people that are, well, I got to finish. Let me finish 14 and 15. They will say, "The fruit you long for is gone from you. All your riches and splendor have vanished, never, 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 never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand," and these guys too, they'll stand far off, "terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn," and like I said, they are not mourning because they're sorry for what they have done. They're mourning because, they're sad this place is gone. They will weep and mourn and cry out, "Woe, woe, O great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. In 1 hour, such great wealth has been brought to ruin." So like I said, if your hope is in the riches, possessions, and the economy, you're going to be in for a major disappointment. So the last group, 17 through 19, is going to be the sea merchants. They're also the last group of the grieving ones. It says, "Every sea captain and all who travel by ship, the sailors, and all who earn their living from the sea will stand far off." So if you notice, standing far off and all this happening in 1 hour is a reoccurring thing. "When they see the smoke of her burning, they will exclaim, 'Was there ever a city like this great city?'" So that verse right there makes me think like they thought this city, one, was indestructible, but two, it's the greatest thing since, like the old saying goes, greatest thing since sliced bread. They just thought this was a fantastic place. Verse 19, "They will throw dust on their heads and with weeping and mourning cry out." That's another thing these all got in common. They're just weeping and mourning. That part there where it says dust on their heads, that's actually an ancient expression of grief. Now, grief, and you can find that in Joshua 7:6, and there's actually more, but I just wrote that one. But expression of grief, this is not repentance. Okay, don't think they're repenting. They're just grieving for themselves. It's not repentance. So 19 and 19, "Weeping and mourning and crying out," it says, "Woe, woe, O great city, where all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin." All right, so now we'll get in. So 20 through 24 to the end of it. This is going to be a different group, and these are the celebrating and rejoicing people, people that are happy over this destruction. So it says, "Rejoice over her, O heaven. Rejoice, saints," meaning all redeemed, "and apostles and prophets. God has judged her for the way she treated you." Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, "With such violence the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again." So Babylon basically is going to sink like a rock, and it's never gonna rise back up. And if you want to hear some more reference on that, Jeremiah 51, 61 through 64 actually reads pretty close to this. But so Babylon's going down. Verse 22, it says, "The music of the harpist and musicians, flute players and trumpeters will never be heard in you again. No workman of any trade will ever be found in you again. The sound of a millstone will never be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again. The voice of a bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. The merchants, your merchants were the world's great men." So these merchants, they really thought they were something, but destroyed very, very easily. And then it says, "By your magic spell, all the nations were led astray." And I'll finish with 24 there. "In her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints and of all who have been killed on the earth." Okay, so she's sinking like a rock. We got that picture. 22 and 23 gives a list of like what's not. I mean, there's no. I mean, it's down to nothing, down to dirt. There's no work. There's no marriage. There's no lights. There's nothing in there. Nobody rejoicing. If you want some more Old Testament verses on the destruction of Babylon, Isaiah 13, 19 through 22, Isaiah 14, verses 22 and 23, and then Jeremiah 50, 13 and 39, and then Jeremiah 51, verses 37. All right, and then verse 24 there, when it's talking about in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints. They had so much slaughter of God's people in them, and that's when God's slow to anger, but eventually he does anger, and he took his judgment out upon them. The one other interesting fact about this last little bit, in verse 23, it says, by your magic spell. Now this is that same word that we use, that we read it before, and we'll read it again later, but that's where we get our word for pharmaceuticals. And it's basically here meaning be sober-minded. Their magic spells, they had drug stuff just like we do back then, and that's why the Bible talks a lot about, stay away from drunkenness. Same way with your marijuana, anything that can alter your mind, it's going to let Satan away in. So I just think that's fascinating about, that if you look up the Greek word, it's farm something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's where we get pharmaceuticals from. All right, so that's the end of that. There's one thing in Luke. I don't remember what it was, but I had it starred. So I'll read Luke 12, verses 16 through 21. Luke 12, 16 through 21. It says, the ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my old barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich towards God. And that is exactly what this new city, this new Babylon, is going to be like. They're storing up things for themselves, not at all concerned about destruction until it comes upon them. They think they are invincible. Nothing's going to happen. Life's too grand. This is great. Taking it back. We have everything. Let's take it easy. And then just like that, God will destroy them. And then the only thing else I want to point out of that, and this has nothing to do with the Revelation part, but there in that 19 it says, and I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take it easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. So I mentioned this in our men's study, but we are all called to do something, for the kingdom. And then I point out, even you get older in age, it's not time right there when this guy says, I'm going to take it easy, eat and drink and be merry. That God never says just, knock it out of gear and just coast the rest of your life. We're always to be doing something for the kingdom. So that was a little side note I had. All right, that's all I got for that. So next